what has happened with the tanker called, with the oil tanker called Marinera. The Russian Ministry of Transport on they have they have published some sort of comments on the seizure of this tanker in the Atlantic. They say on December 24th, 2025, the tanker Marinera received temporary authorization to sail under the Russian state flag, issued in accordance with the Russian law and international legal norms. Today, around 3 p.m. Moscow time, the U.S. naval force boarded the vessel on the high seas outside of outside the territorial waters of any state. Contact with the ship was subsequently lost under the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. The high sea are governed by the principle of freedom of navigation. No state has the right to use force against vessels lawfully registered under the jurisdiction of another state. What is going on in the mind of the Trump administration, and what was the necessity of doing this, Scott?
Well, first of all, we need to understand that the Trump administration is a rogue government at this point in time. It doesn't operate in accordance with the rule of law. And they all but admit it. They say we are about might makes right. What strength will allow us to do, we will do. Marco Rubio has said that international law just doesn't matter. The United Nations doesn't matter. The United Nations Charter doesn't matter. None of the legal frameworks that hold the world together matter anymore. The only thing that matters is American power, American might. And it's just so flagrant. When you have the ambassador of the United States to the United Nations in the Security Council say that, America will determine how Venezuelan oil is used, who gets to buy it, who doesn't get to buy it. That there's no basis in law for this. The kidnapping of Maduro is a blatantly illegal act. And we've now committed an act of piracy on the open seas. And that's what it is. It's piracy. There is no legal framework that allows this to happen. And the U.S. court systems have been corrupted because apparently the Coast Guard was acting on a warrant that was issued by the Southern District of New York, allowing them to seize this ship. But there is no constitutional authority for this warrant. Let's just make it clear that the United States is bound by treaties that have been signed by presidents, ratified by the United States Senate, and therefore, under the Constitution of the United States, become the supreme law of the land. There has been no congressional legislation passed that modifies these treaties in a way to give the courts a hook, because the only time the courts have a hook is if Congress has taken legislative action, and now the courts get to determine the constitutionality of the interpretation of the treaty as it deals with congressional legislation. But void of congressional legislation, the treaty is the supreme law of the land. And when you take a look at the various Supreme Court decisions that have been passed on this very issue, I think there was one that was passed in 1884. Justice Miller, I think, was the author of this. But basically, he said, look, when you have a treaty and you have treaty disputes, basically treaties come down to the honor and the intent of the nations involved, and the interests, of the nations involved. The United States has no honor anymore, none whatsoever. There is no honor, and our interests are purely selfish. And so basically at this juncture, problems about treaties are resolved by war. I just want to point this out. This is not a law enforcement operation that's taking place. There is no law to be enforced here. This is a rogue operation, an act of piracy. The consequence is either the capitulation of Russia or war. That's what it comes down to. The United States has determined that it alone will, decide how Venezuelan oil is, dealt with on the open market. So we've imposed sanctions that have no weight under international law. We don't get to launch an embargo of Venezuela is an act of war. literally an act of war. This isn't figurative. This isn't hyperbole. It's a literal act of war. So if we are enforcing an embargo, a blockade of Venezuela, then we've declared war. But did you see Congress declare war? No, because the president says, I don't need to go to Congress. I'm the frickin' dictator. I am Donald Trump. And he acts as a not just virtual. He is a dictator. Congress has punted. There is no congressional roadblock whatsoever. And the courts have punted because they're doing whatever he wants, regardless of what the Constitution says. So the United States has ceased functioning as a constitutional republic. And today we function as a dictatorship run by this cult of personality called Donald Trump. What Donald wants, Donald gets. I mean, it's become absurd. When we have people talking about the Monroe Doctrine, they go, it's the Monroe Doctrine. I mean, is this a Saturday Night Live skit? I mean, is this what America's become? A frickin' joke? A running joke? I mean, we have senators of the United States, Lindsey Graham comes to mind, just joyfully bleeding. I mean, having an orgasm live on TV as he thinks about the fact that he now has a president that just throws the rule of law out. And this is a man who sits, as the chair of the Judiciary Committee of the Senate. This is what I mean. We don't function as a constitutional republic anymore. This is an act of war, an act of piracy. Let's see what Russia does. I mean, I just wrote a piece and, I'm an American. I love my country, but my country is a constitutional republic, not a rogue nation carrying out acts of piracy. And a Coast Guard ship that has boarded a Russian flagged vessel, lawfully flagged vessel in open seas is a pirate vessel. And I said, it's time to smack the camel in the nose. And what I mean by that, there's an old Middle East saying that once the camel sticks its nose under the tent, if you don't stop it, it's in the tent. And the United States right now is sticking its nose under the tent of the rule of law. We're basically saying that there is no rule of law. And if someone doesn't smack us in the nose and cause us to pull back, we will start doing anything. I mean, there is no stopping us. Once we do, I mean, I have to laugh at Europe right now. Oh, we're supporting this action, the act of piracy. Yeah, what are you going to do tomorrow when Trump takes over Greenland? Because it's the same thing, guys. Once you allow him to do this, he's just going to keep doing it. It's time for the camel to get smacked on the nose, because if we don't, we're looking at World War III. Because this won't end until American boots are on the ground in Ukraine, because Donald Trump will continue to push what are American interests. And eventually he'll just deem that the Russians are bluffing, and he'll put American troops on the ground in Ukraine, and then we all die. So this is a very serious thing. This is an extremely serious thing. It's an act of aggression. It's an illegal act of piracy. And it sickens me as an American to believe that, men and women in the uniform of the United States military are executing these orders. That warrant is not a lawful document, because no U.S. court can authorize an act of piracy. And yet that's what they've done.
Scott, what is the outcome of kidnapping the president of Venezuela? What is the outcome, and what was the desired outcome for the Trump administration? Are they going to achieve that?
Well, understand that it didn't happen in a vacuum. I mean, they already achieved. What do you mean, are they going to achieve it? They got him. He's ours. We own him. He's in a prison right now.
But the outcome, I want to see the big picture of what would be the outcome, the way that the United States, what does the United States want from Venezuela that under the Maduro, administration, they couldn't achieve that. That's why they're doing this.
You're missing the whole point. To have a Maduro administration means that the United States recognizes sovereignty. The United States published a national security strategy document in November of 2025, and everybody poo-pooed it. I laugh in the face of these people. Yeah, I just have to apologize, Naeem. I've come to the point right now where I just don't care about ignorance anymore. I hate stupidity. And there's a whole bunch of really stupid people out there right now who think they know what the hell's going on, and they don't. When they published that document, I said, this is a real document. Oh, no, it's not. It's just Trump blowing smoke. No, it's a real document, and it's real policy, and it's being implemented as we speak. And that document said that America is going to create Fortress America in the Western Hemisphere. and that we own everything. Read the document very carefully. We own all the resources of the Western Hemisphere. Whether you agree with me or not, it doesn't. We own Canadian oil. Wake up, Canada. We own your oil. You're not going to get to sell that oil on the open market the way you think you want to. You will sell that oil the way we tell you. We own Greenland. We haven't taken it over formally, but we're going to. We own the Panama Canal. Oh, China, that $1.3 billion port that you built in Chancay, Peru, we own that. We own all the train networks that you've put in there. We own the lithium triangle, where 60% of the world's lithium is contained between Argentina, Chile, and I think Bolivia, maybe. But, we own all this. We say we own it. These resources cannot be used by outside powers, by non-hemispheric powers. So what are we doing in Venezuela? We're putting the marker down. We own Venezuela. We own everything about Venezuela. And we're telling Colombia, we own you too. We're telling Mexico, we own you too. We're telling everybody, we own you. And if you choose to operate in a manner that implies independence of operation outside of American domination, then we will take your leaders and we will punish you. The CIA has done a tremendous amount of preparatory work in Venezuela. It hasn't come out yet. We bought off the military. I mean, there's going to be hell to pay once the investigations are done. You could see a civil war in Venezuela because there are 100 people died. I mean, this was not, going in and grabbing somebody coming out. We murdered 100 people. 32 of them were Cuban security forces who apparently didn't have night vision goggles. So when the United States turned out the lights and Delta Force streamed in with their night vision goggles, they didn't stand a chance. They wounded 7 Delta guys because they fired haphazardly, but Delta fires with precision and killed everybody. But apparently we killed everybody. I mean, civilian servants in the house, they died. Civilians on the street who got in the way of the suppressive fire laid down on various sites throughout Caracas, they died. We slaughtered 100 people to capture this guy. We don't care about human life. We simply don't care. There's not a tear shed in America for any of the people that were murdered by the Joint Special Operations Command in carrying out this raid. We will kill Colombians. We will kill Mexicans. We will kill Canadians. We will kill Greenlanders. We will kill anybody who gets in our way. This is where we stand as the United States of America. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting because I've always believed that America should be the most powerful nation in the world because we need to prevail in any legitimate conflict. But what we have, that power is always constrained by the Constitution. And our status as a constitutional republic, our status as a nation governed by the rule of law, not just domestically, but in terms of our interaction with the global community. And I just want to remind your audience that the United Nations Charter is a treaty that's been signed by an American president, ratified by 2/3 of the United States Senate, and therefore, under the Constitution, is the supreme law of the land. So anytime you hear an idiot like Marco Rubio or people in your chat or anybody else saying, the international law doesn't matter, fuck off. It matters. It's real. And without it, we live in a jungle. And the United States today, when you hear Marco Rubio say, the United Nations doesn't matter, what he's saying is, I have no respect for the Constitution of the United States of America. Because there is due process. If we decide that the United Nations Charter is incompatible with the United States, with the constitutional republic called the United States, then we do things like withdraw from the Charter. Or we pass legislation to modify the treaty, which we're allowed to do. And we can do things like that. But just to sit there and say it's no longer convenient to us, so we're just going to do that means that we are no longer a constitutional republic, that the rule of law doesn't matter. And every American has to understand it. This is why ICE roams the streets of American cities today and detains American cities without fear of consequence, because the rule of law doesn't matter. We've allowed this narcissist, this Caligula, this cult of personality to basically say what I want, I get, and nobody gets in his way, domestically and now internationally. This is why I believe that the camel needs to be punched in the nose. Russia, sink the fucking Coast Guard ship. Send a signal. Draw a line. Because if you don't, The camel's going to be in the tent, and then it's all over. Then it's World War III.
Yeah, I think we are heading toward that sort of confrontation. It seems that Russia was so much patient about what's going on. But how long do you see Russia being that patient not to confront the United States?
It's a
You know,
fundamental question because, you know, I just wrote a piece called "The Sanctions Shield," and in it I talk about the threat of sanctions, and the United States has used sanctions. Initially, I used to believe that sanctions was when you enacted sanctions, it meant you don't have a policy. We don't know what to do, so sanction them. Buy time while we figure it out. But what we've found out is that over time, the sanctions doesn't weaken the society the way we want it to. The idea was to get the people to hold their government accountable. What we found is, though, that sanctions, especially those that target the political and economic elites who previously enjoyed a good working relationship with the West, with the United States, that these sanctions, if you put the pain on them and then you dangle the prospects of the lifting of sanctions, you've now created leverage in that society. And that was the fatal mistake that Venezuela made. You saw Maduro bend over backwards to try and make arrangements with Chevron. I mean, what Maduro should have done the moment the United States sanctioned it is nationalize the totality of Venezuelan oil, nationalize the totality, and sell Chevron's assets to China for $1 and say, China, you own this now. America, you fucked around, you found out. You came at us, we just obviated you. You don't matter anymore. It is owned by China. And now you force the United States to take a break. But what happened is, no, he went, hey, let's play around. Let's work with Chevron. Let's work with the United States. Let's make deals. Why? Because the United States had hurt a segment of his population, political and economic elites. And instead of confronting those elites and saying, under no circumstances do we deal with the devil, he said, no, let's dance with the devil. Let's play the game on the hopes that the devil's actually playing a real game by the rules and that they'll lift the sanctions and all this wealth will come back in and you guys can get back to the standard of living. Everything will be good. Maduro can dance in the street again and all that kind of stuff. But that's not how the United States plays, because we lure the possibility of, we dangle the possibility of the lifting of sanctions, and then we just slam the door. And then we blame it on Maduro and we say it's his fault. And now the political and economic elites go, hey, Maduro, he's to blame. And the CIA comes in and goes, hey, guys, we can help you out here. You help us get rid of Maduro. And man, we got bank accounts right now with money in it. Here's the bank account. That's your name. There's a lot of money in there. And there'll be more money once the oil starts to flow. All you have to do is play the game. And sadly, Venezuelan traders took the CIA dollar. This is what's happening in Iran, by the way. I just want to make this point very, very clear that the Iranian government, Pezeshkian, I don't condemn the man. I mean, he knows that sanctions hurt. Sanctions hurt. And instead of saying, suck it up, Iran, we ain't caving ever. We will make the adjustments necessary, but we will never again work with the West, ever again. Take that off the plate. He went, no. We've got to make good with the West. Shit, that's your mistake, dude, because the second you did that, you created hope in the eyes of certain political and economic elites in Iran that there could be better days ahead if the sanctions are lifted. And then when the United States says, but it's the government of Iran's fault for the sanctions not being lifted, you've created that point of leverage. And now the CIA and other intelligence services, Israel, the Dutch, the British, are in there leveraging this false hope of economic largesse into opposition to remove the government of Iran. The government of Iran is to blame for this, 100%. I mean, I don't condone what's happening, but it's their fault. They created this condition, just like Maduro did. And look, Russia's doing the same thing. Vladimir Putin, he was given a gift, the gift of sanctions, because the sanctions against Russia are so absolute that Russia created a sanctions shield that basically said that in order for us to survive, we have to live outside any notion of economic interaction with the West. And they created these links. They redid things themselves. But then Kirill Dmitriev came in. And I'm not saying the man is the fifth column, but he is. He's a Goldman Sachs banker who runs the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Russia, a wealth fund that depends upon Western economic methodologies to thrive. The Putin should have shut it down and turned it over to a Russian and said, run it Russian style. We don't want Goldman Sachs bankers anymore. I'm sorry, Kirill, here's your pension. Go pound sand. But instead, Kirill came in and said, hey, we can work with the West here. Why don't we offer them, these economic relationships, exploitation of the Arctic, helping us with oil exploitation in the north, the rare earth minerals, all these things we can do. Once sanctions are lifted, we're cut a deal in Ukraine, but the sanctions will be great. And then he started working with Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's boy, not a diplomacy guy, an economic guy. But Trump never, ever, ever wanted to do any of the things Kirill Dmitriev wants. He's not serious about it. The Russians have committees and organizations that get together and they have plans. The United States has squat. They have Witkoff and Jared Kushner, a Zionist who wants to, turn Gaza into a Mediterranean vacation spot. That's the depth of his analysis. Meeting with Kirill Dmitriev, talking pie in the sky crap. And the problem is, this gets published in Russia, and then Russian political and economic elites go, we want that. We can make money off of this. This would be a good thing. And they start putting pressure on Vladimir Putin to make good with the West. No, you had a shield, a sanction shield. Never, ever deal with the West, Vladimir Putin. Never. Not now. Not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a man who lacks honor. No deal with Donald Trump will ever be manifested the way you think it will be. It's a one-way street. The deal is only good so far as Donald Trump personally is enriched by it, politically or economically. And the moment the deal becomes inconvenient, Trump will walk. That's his entire business relationship. Go back to his time as a New York realtor. Go back to his time in Atlantic City with the casino. The man's a living, walking piece of shit who literally uses the rules to make money to his sole benefit. He doesn't care about establishing a viable business. He doesn't care about, mutually beneficial relationships. It's a one-way street. That's it. Donald Trump, one way. And he's now the president of the United States, and he's making the United States behave in this fashion. Vladimir Putin needs to shut Kirill Dmitriev down now. Stop it. And tell everybody in Russia, don't even think about economic relations with the West. That isn't going to happen ever. And if you want it to happen, get the hell out of the country. Leave now. Leave your money here, but get out of here. I'm not dealing with it. Shut it down now. Because if you don't, the United States will find a way. The CIA will always find a way to whisper sweet nothings into the ears of people who are looking for a better way of life, the quick way out, the path to riches. And when that happens, there will be opposition in Russia. And, I'm not saying the Russian government can't control it, but why do you want to open the door to this crap? Shut it down now. But they haven't. And it's a sign of, I don't want to say weakness, but it's a sign of bad thinking. Vladimir Putin is getting bad advice from people. If anybody's telling Vladimir Putin that there's a potential for the spirit of Alaska to manifest itself, there is no potential for the spirit of Alaska. The spirit of Alaska was always a fraud. Never forget this. The person briefing Donald Trump as he was going in for the meeting was a CIA officer, the former national intelligence officer for Russia and Eurasia, who hated Donald Trump, was part of the 2016 effort to, undermine Donald Trump, who hates Vladimir Putin, who hates Russia. Do you really think this person was giving Donald Trump realistic analysis about Russia? Or was this person advising Donald Trump on how you can use the Alaska summit to your own benefit? What do you need the Russians to commit to walk away? And it worked. Trump didn't give anything away in Alaska. But what he got from the Russians was a commitment to the spirit of Alaska. And that opened the door for the continued dialogue between Dmitriev and Witkoff, which then creates this notion of the possibility of economic largesse if sanctions could just be lifted. It was a scam the whole time. Donald Trump played Vladimir Putin. And I think it's time for Vladimir Putin to wake up and understand that that's exactly what happened. You got played by Trump, by Witkoff, by Dmitriev. Whether Dmitriev was witting or not, I'm not going to malign the patriotism of Kirill Dmitriev, but he's a Goldman Sachs banker. This is what he does. He makes deals. He doesn't make deals, like you and I make a deal, a handshake deal, where it's based on reality. He deals with massive movements of money that enrich select elites. And that's what he's done. He created the potential for certain elites in Russia to make a whole bunch of money. And we're talking about governors. We're talking about, heads of cities, heads of corporations. All these people are lining up to play this game. And these are people who have political power. And now they're disappointed because the trillions of dollars they thought they were going to make isn't going to be made. And Dmitriev's left holding an empty bag, but so too is Vladimir Putin. Shut it down now, President Putin. Shut it down now. There is no spirit of Alaska. Never was. It was always a scam. And you're being scammed right now. And if you don't believe that, take a look at your frickin' ship just boarded by American pirates in the North Atlantic.